Hey everyone, it's Wolf614 here, back at it again with another video. This is season number 6 of our Rapid State Dynasty. We are closing in. We got this and one other season after this, and then we move to College Football 27. I'm super excited for that. As you can see here in the background going through the team, we're up to an 87 overall, and if you missed it, I'm going to throw it up in the iCard for our Season 5 Dynasty video, and I'll give you a second to go watch that if you haven't. And then I'm going to spoil what happened. Alright, if you do know what occurred, we won our first national championship, an improbable run all the way through to beat Hawaii State and Heath in the finals. And yeah, so we are coming off a national title win. We were ranked 10 in the preseason polls, ready to go for our first game here. So without further ado, and you see the roster there, we're going to hop right on into it. So a little bit of a weird scheduling thing has led us to playing Michigan the first time we've ever played Michigan, even though we're from Michigan as our school, as our conference opener and home opener and season opener all on the same day. Quite the game coming up here for us against them. But yeah, make sure, one other thing, if you do enjoy this content, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I really appreciate it. And yeah, let's hop into this new season. So we would do precisely about nothing on our first drive, and we would get into a really ugly defensive battle against Michigan here. We would stop them on their first drive, and then we would have a decently long drive that would fail on fourth down. Just nothing going on. They would then have a good drive down the field to score the first points of the game on a field goal. I'm really sorry that the footage is really nasty here. We'd get the ball right back and throw a horrendous interception to really switch the field and give them momentum. And then on their first kick back, they would once again make the field goal there. We would then go on a good drive right before halftime, looking for our first score, and we would get it. Like I said, I'm really sorry about the corrupted footage. I don't know what's going on there. But once again, in the third quarter, a super long drive goes to another field goal for them. I don't know what was on this one, but we would then have a drive that would end in a field goal for us. And then this would be the big play of the game. On 3rd and 1, they would go for it, run it, and not get it. We would end up driving down, wasting all their time on 4th and inches, being able to get across the line to win 10-9. Not the best of showings, but regardless, a win is a win at the end of the day. Not a lot of yards, not a lot of anything really going on in this game. So we just wanted to skip by it quickly as we improved to 1-0 and move on to face USF in Tampa. Game number 2 would kick off the same way game number 1 would, with our defense really showing up and showing out, forcing a lot of pressure and getting a stop. However, on our first drive, we would here on 3rd and 4 take a shot over the middle, but a bad throw behind the receiver would cause us to throw another bad interception, just like the game against Michigan. However, we would get the ball back, and once again, and we would finally put in our first big score of the year. Marco Beaver right up the middle, racing his way all the way for our big score of the game. Later in the second quarter, we would get the ball back once again, another deep drive, and another score, this time to Kent. We would then move to the end. They would have a super good drive, long but quick, and that would lead to them getting their first touchdown on the day. Here in the third quarter on 4th and inches, a big play here going underneath to Allen, and Allen would get us all the way down to the 10. We would quickly parlay that into a read option here, or a speed option rather. A good toss from wing to Beaver would put us in the end zone, and we would move to the end of the third quarter. Our big defense coming up and forcing a stop, allowing us to get the ball back once again. Another big play here. We would go over the middle to Richie Sexton, and Sexton would make 4 people miss and almost break it all the way for a score. We'd have one more big play here at the end of the third quarter, giving it to Sexton once again, getting him his score, and that would ice this game. We'd end up winning overall 35-21. A really solid showing there for our week 2 game. The offense that was completely distant in the Michigan game coming back in a big way as we move on to game number 3 against Nebraska. You should get that checked out. We have a pretty decent start off against Nebraska here on our first drive of the game, going underneath, finding Kent, the tight end. He would have a lot of space, putting us down just outside of the red zone. The very next play, Marco Beaver up the middle, blasting through tackles, putting us up 7-0. They would then, on their next drive, had a pretty good one. But in the rain, they were scared to take the field goal. They would go for it on 4th and 4 and not convert. We would get the ball right back, and Marco Beaver would go to work once again, racing to the outside. The power back, not enough speed to get to the end zone. But regardless, we would make sure to punch it in. And 3rd and goal here, getting it in there for the score. Now you can see here, our very next drive, they did absolutely nothing on offense. Wing launches downfield. Richie Sexton down the field. A big catch there. That drive would lead to a field goal right before the 2-minute warning here. And once again, you can see here on 3rd and 15, defense putting in pressure. He's going to launch it deep down the field. Humphreys would go up, or sorry, Funchess would go up, make that interception. A good return would once again lead to yet another field goal here. The drive would stall out just inside the red zone, but alas, a really comfortable lead here heading into the 3rd quarter at 20-0. We then hand off. Beaver once again finding room on the outside. A big juke. He could go, and he will go all the way. A touchdown there to put us up 27-0. Later in the 4th quarter, now up 34-0. You can see a great route there from Franklin Chun, and he is racing down the sideline all the way down to the 6. We would end up punching it in here on 3rd and goal. You can see the crossing routes over the middle. We'd wait until all the way at the end, and that would basically be it. An absolute crushing win, 41-0 against Nebraska. As we move on to the next game on the road versus Rutgers here, we are rolling here up to number 7 in the country at 3-0. Rutgers on their first drive would have a decent drive, but it would ultimately stall out. Almost intercepted there, should have been. But regardless, we'd hold them to nothing. On our subsequent drive here, 3rd and 10, you can see the routes crossing across the field. We would end up finding our man in the middle. That would be Chun, putting us 1st and goal, now 2nd and goal with the speed option here. Wing tossing it to Beaver, and he would waltz his way in for 6. That would be our first score of the game. Rutgers now on a good drive in our territory. Big pressure, and that would cause a sack, which would lead to a field goal on that possession. They would put it up and in to make it 7-3. However, here, right before half, another good toss on a good speed option, and Beaver would be off to the races once again, rolling down the sideline, making it 1st and goal, now 3rd and goal here. With a minute 46 left in the half, Wing drops back. He goes underneath. It's easily caught for our score to put us up 14-3. And you can see here 1st and 10 over the middle, a bad throw, and Burris, the leader of our defense in tackles last year, with a big interception in return all the way down to the Rutgers 30. Subsequent drive here, the minute 15 left, Beaver up the middle, and he would punch it in for the score. That would basically be it. A absolute drubbing in the second half. An onslaught of points, 45-3. Nothing they could do against Marco Beaver having 150 yards and 3 scores on 22 touches. As we would then move on to our next game, a home game after a 4-star recruit, Mike linebacker. We would move on to our game against Wisconsin. Now you can see here, 1st and 10, our first play of the game, going back to the tried and true speed option. They cannot handle it. Marco Beaver down the sideline, the 20, the 10, the 5, and he'd get tackled at the 1. 1st and goal, subsequent play here. Great zig route there from Chun, and that would be our score. They would have a decent drive, which would lead to a 50-yard field goal attempt. That would be up and good. However, 3rd and 8 here, a flag for offsides, free play. Wing launches downfield. It is caught by Chun, and that is 6 for us. Put us up 14-3 in the 2nd quarter now. Beaver once again showing great vision and great running skills, putting us well within scoring position. He's running through tackles, barreling his way down to the 1, and then we would give him the ball to give him his well-deserved touchdown on that drive. Wisconsin really struggling, not doing much, launching it over the middle. That's a good chunk play for them. However, it'd be 3rd and 9 once again. They would drop back. He would find a man in the seam, and that would be for 6 for Wisconsin. Still a little too late here, all things considered, as we would be going deep once again. Franklin Chun once again. A great ball there from wing, and you can see we're just plowing it in. Wisconsin wouldn't score on the next one. We would get it in to make it 35-10 before half. Once again, threatening late in the 3rd quarter, we drop it underneath to Richie Sexton. Sexton would make a beautiful move and score to put us up by even more. It's 42-17 the final in Grand Rapids. We are undefeated. Franklin Chun with a beautiful game. 7 catches for 194 yards and 3 touchdowns. Absolutely unstoppable. Another 4-star recruit coming in here after that week, and Jaleel Murphy, as we move on to our toughest test. One of the teams that beat us last year. This time we get them at home. It's number 1 Oregon versus number 5 Rapid State, and a night game in Grand Rapids.
Okay.
On our first drive, we would end up getting all the way to the red zone, but on a 4th and 1, we would go incomplete and turn the ball over to Oregon. They would have a good drive back down the field and try a 56-yard field goal. It would just be outside, and we remain 0-0 until our next drive in the 2nd quarter. We'd finally be able to capitalize and score our first points of the game here, where on the very next possession, on a 3rd and 9, Oregon would have the ball, try to go deep, but it'd be intercepted by Humphreys, putting us in great field position once again right before halftime to try and pick up some more points. However, we would end up throwing the ball right back to him and getting it picked off again. Turnovers back to back. You can see here on the 1st and 10, we'd force a sack and a fumble. However, it wouldn't result to anything. We now move to midway through the 3rd quarter on a 4th down. Wing would step up and roll down the field to the 35. Next part of the downs here, a toss over the middle to the run it to the wide receiver, and that would be a score once again to put us up 14. Oregon would finally have a drive that would end in points with a field goal right at the end of the 3rd quarter. Here in the 4th, 3 minutes left to go. We look over the middle once again to Allen, the tight end. He'd have a lot of room all the way down inside the 25. This would end up leading to a field goal here, which we would boot up and through to make it a 17-3 lead. Oregon, with a minute left to go, would be on one more desperate drive. They would launch to the back corner of the end zone, but it would be intercepted, and that would end the game where it stood, a 17-3 victory, which would vault us up to being the number 1 team in the country. Wing with a solid game other than the 1 interception, 210 passing yards, and 2 scores. We would then move to getting a 5-star quarterback out of the recruiting class and a 3-star strong safety before moving to our game in Champaign, Illinois against the Fighting Illini. First drive of the game here for us, we would be on a smooth one here over the middle to our receiver, and that would be a big pickup. Now on 3rd and goal, we would go underneath, find Chun, and that would be our first score of the game. Defense needs to step up here on a 3rd and 9, and they will. Sam Hastings making the big tackle. Now here on our next drive, a big toss on a speed option, a huge block up the field, and Marco Beaver would race in untouched. Once again, on our subsequent drive with Illinois not doing much, Beaver would run all the way down to the 2, but fumble the ball and give it to Illinois in a dangerous position for them. They would try to run it on a counter and would not make it out of the end zone. It would be a safety, putting us up 16-0. And then once again on that drive following the safety punt, Wing would extend the play, find a man over the middle, and put us down In scoring position once again, first and goal on the subsequent play, we'd give it to Beaver, and he would put it in. Once again, we'd have the ball right before the end of the half, and another score there to Richie Sexton would really start to put this game away. We'd bring in some backups, let Dye get the ball, and he would run well inside the 10-yard line to set up a first and goal. On second and goal here, underneath to Allen would be another score, really putting this game out of reach. It ended up being 54-0. Just unstoppable in our game there. Never scoring less than 7 in a quarter. We then moved to a ranked-on-ranked matchup on the road versus North Texas, a random one in the middle of our season, but our schedule really weird. So that would be where we were at. On the first 3rd and 4 of the game, they would drop the pass. We would come down subsequently on a 3rd and 5 on our first drive, and we would get a drop as well short of the sticks. However, they could not do anything on their next drive, and we would get the ball back and start moving down the field. First of all, a good pass to Kent over the middle, and then later in the drive, we'd drop it underneath and get into the end zone for a score there. 3rd and 3 now for them. They would try the QB draw. It would not work. We'd stop them short and get the ball back in the second quarter here now. You can see going underneath once again. This time Allen, the backup tight end, a good block down the field, racing all the way into the end zone for the score. Wing now on our next drive. 1:30 left to go. Another great pass into the middle of the field and another score. We're starting to open this game up. North Texas here on a little bit of a drive. They would go underneath. It would be picked off by Enrique Rosales. Now here on 3rd down and 10, we would be looking right at the end of the half to a deep ball to Kent, and he would burn the linebacker to make it 28-0. Now in the 3rd quarter here, 4th and 3, we're looking for a guy. We find a man. It's another tight end in the end zone. This game would end up being an easy one as well, 49-7. Really just untouchable all things considered, as we would continue to hold on to the #1 spot as we land a 4-star running back. Now the first college football playoff rankings are out. You see we're the #1 team in the country. They're Hawaii State. Heath is the #2 team as we move into our game versus USC at home. Bryce Wing the week before, 287 yards and 7 passing touchdowns. On USC's first drive of the game, they would get a good play as it was poor user defending by myself to let them get that on 3rd and goal. However, they would try the screen, and Hastings was having absolutely none of it, and we would force them to try the field goal from a tough angle, mind you. This one from 25 yards they would try, take the snap, it's up, and he would miss it, not getting the angle right. On our first drive on offense, we would drop it down underneath to Kent. Kent would roll all the way down to the 1-yard line, but he would get hurt, and we would give to Beaver up the middle, and he would put us in the end zone for the first time. Now USC trying once again to get down the field, and they would quickly to the tight end, a great pass on an RPO. However, on 3rd and goal, once again, they were really struggling to put it in the end zone, as our defense was trying the bend don't break policy, and it would work with a diving try at a catch, but it would be incomplete. The kicker, who had already missed one from a tight angle, would try once again and miss once again to keep us in the comfortable lead. Now it would go over the middle and a big catch there out to midfield, as we would be on a absolute flying drive here. Once again underneath, a big juke down inside the 5, and we would then on that subsequent 1st and goal wait for the drag route to come all the way across the field and score the touchdown. Right before half, we would get the ball back and be able to put in a field goal of our own, not missing from that same difficult angle. Now late in the 3rd quarter, 17-3 is the score. An unguarded Allen on the wheel route would result in a huge play for us, putting us well within scoring position. We would go underneath Allen once again to give him his flowers and give him his 6. Now 30-11 the score. right before the end of the game, one more pass underneath, Richie Sexton would score and make it a 37-11 final. USC not having much for us as we land 4 recruits in this week off. Now we move on to a huge ranked-on-ranked matchup. We are still the #1 team in the nation. However, Washington would be trying to derail us and try to put themselves at the top of the Big Ten. Our first play of the game, or first drive of the game rather, would result in a huge pass to Kent and would put us out in scoring position very early on 2nd and 1. A pinpole toss straight out of the Oregon playbook would result in Beaver putting us up 7-0 early. A minute 20 left in the first half here. A great pass over the middle, finding a soft spot in our cover 2 defense there. We would try to force the pressure on a screen, however the blocking would be too good and a missed tackle would result in them tying up the game. Next drive here, right at the end of the first quarter, we would try to find someone open. No one would be there. A huge sack would result in us stalling out on that drive. On their next possession, they would get the ball back and be able to put in a field goal to make this a 10-7 lead for Washington. Now, 2.5 minutes left in the half. Wing would step up and put up a huge run to put us inside the 30. 4th and 4 now. Drive stalling out a little bit. We would go underneath, but it would be intercepted. A little mini arm punt, but a missed tackle there would allow them to return it out to about the 25. Now on their next drive, right before half, they would go underneath to the running back. He would have way too much room and would make it 1st and goal. Subsequent play here, they'd go RPO and put themselves up 2 possessions. Right before half, we were looking for any points to try and keep us in this game. Wing would step up once again, take a big hit, but put us close to midfield, and now we would have a long field goal to try. It would be up and just barely good. They would then have the ball on a 3rd and 10 with just under 3 minutes left to go. They'd go screen pass underneath, and we would get the stop barely, forcing another field goal attempt, which would be up and good once again, reestablishing their 10-point lead out of the half. Late in the 3rd quarter here, Wing looking underneath, finding a man, and that would be a score for Rapid State to make it a 3-point game once again. 2nd and 11 now. They would try underneath, but it'd be picked off by Humphreys. A huge interception and a pick 6 to put us back out in front. Now, 24-20. Washington playing from behind for the first time since the first quarter. They launch to the back of the end zone, and it would be caught. We would get absolutely mossed to put them back in the lead. Next drive, 2.5 minutes left in this game. We'd get set up the screen, and we would get a huge run after the catch there, putting us well within scoring position. Up the middle now to Barr. Barr would almost score down to the 1. And now we'd be on our 3rd string running back. For the moment, it would not matter. The push up front was good enough to put us up 31-27. Washington now with 30 seconds left in this game, looking over the middle, and they would find a man, which would be caught to put them up by 3. 20 seconds left. We would find a wide open Kent way down the field, putting us just in field goal range. We'd run the ball here with timeouts in our pocket to put ourselves in a good spot to make this and force overtime. We would kick it up, and it would be good. So now we head to overtime on our first possession. We would get the ball first. We would be able to run it in on 4th and goal to make it 41-34, forcing Washington to get a touchdown, which they would on their next possession. However, on 3rd and 4 here, we would send the blitz and get the sack, forcing a field goal attempt. On a 4th and 11, it would be up and good. However, now we knew what we had to do and put the ball in the end zone to try and win this game. We'd go underneath to Allen, the tight end. He would race all the way down to the 2, and on 1st and goal, no coverage on the outside, we would drop it in and win this one. Huge win for us on the road to keep the ranking high and to keep control of this Big Ten as we win our best game of the season, 47-44. A great comeback, down 10 in the second half. Not the biggest comeback we've had in this series, but certainly one that needed to happen. We could not stop their quarterback, though. Concern going forward as we would more than likely face them late into the season or in the postseason regardless. But however, we would move on, holding our number 1 ranking against Indiana at home. Another solid showing from Wing here would be shown right before we'd hop into this first game, as we would find Chun over the middle on our first drive to really start pushing down into scoring position. We go underneath to number 2, and he would find his way into the end zone. He's got a nose for big plays and good moves. 3rd and 9 here, late delayed blitz, and it would work out, forcing an interception here. The first time our defense really forcing havoc in any years in this season. Now Marco Beaver on the stretch run out of the pistol would find his way into the end zone. We would start taking control of this game very early. A deep ball to Chun. He would be able to stretch, almost get into the end zone. Subsequent play, we'd give it up the middle to Beaver, and he's unstoppable in short yardage situation. We're up 21-0 here. We go over the middle to Chun once again, and he would be able to make that catch right at the 2-minute warning. End of this drive on a 4th and 1, however, we would not be able to score. Indiana wouldn't be able to do anything out of the tight field position. We get the ball back, go underneath Richie Sexton all the way down to the 1 once again. This time we would not be denied up the middle, and Marco Beaver would bounce his way into the end zone. We move ahead to the 4th quarter. This game is well out of reach, 31-7. Launching it down the field, Chun once again making a good catch.
Like, what are you doing?
As we would find ourselves again inside the 5, easily up the middle. Beaver scoring again, an easy win all things considered, winning 45-7 over Indiana and maintaining a really good spot, as Marco Beaver would set the single season rushing touchdown record, which is a pretty neat one, as we'd land a 3-star wide receiver and a 3-star will linebacker and be setting number 12 currently in the recruiting classes. We got 1 game left to go versus Central Michigan on the season. You can see there we absolutely dominated them the season before. However, this time they wanted to come out finally with a true speedster quarterback and start pressing us on the option. We would not be able to stop a triple option now, and the receiver would be out to the races. They're inside the red zone on their first drive. 1st and 10 now, a speed option, which would turn into a QB power, and we would have no answers on their drive. Central Michigan coming out quick, but we would try our hand at their game, and Marco Beaver up the middle of that defense there on that right side would take it 1 play for a score, and that would set the tone. Now out of this, on our next drive, out of the Wildcat on 2nd and go, we'd punch it in to make it a 14-7 game. 2nd and 6 here for them. They would get sacked, forcing another stop. Right before halftime here in our 2-minute drill, we give the ball to Beaver. We knew we couldn't stop him. A big juke there to get around the defense, and that would set us up once again with another spot for Beaver to score another touchdown. 2nd and 1 now, still before the half. A deep ball here to Richie Sexton, the talent really showing itself now. And right before halftime, crossing routes underneath, getting it to Kent, and he would score the touchdown. Now, in the 3rd quarter, another pinball toss, one of my favorite plays in this game, would allow Beaver to get down the sidelines all the way down and not be caught. It's another score. Moving ahead to the end of the 3rd quarter now, 35-10. We would go deep to Franklin Chun, and it was just ugly at this point. End of the 4th quarter, 63-10 the score. Another ball underneath, and that would finish off our regular season in a huge showing, 70-10, and a couple single game records broken by Marco Beaver for both rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. As you can see here, some of the records we've broken from Eastern Michigan players, season records, almost owned by all of us and all of our teams.
Rushing yards is Beaver.
Excuse me. You can see we go through the season stuff. The only ones we don't have are receptions and interceptions and single game, a little more split. But we have the passing yards, rushing yards, passing touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, and sacks records, all owned by us. And then career records, the big one is receiving yards, owned by Hochstein now. And a couple other ones. Passing touchdowns, Leone, sacks, we got Brady Ford. Receiving touchdowns, Hodgstein as well. As we move on to the Big Ten championship game, a rematch versus Oregon. We were able to handle our business against them pretty early in the year. Now the roles flipped. They're technically the underdogs at the 5, as we are number 3 heading into this game. We would stop them easily on our first defensive possession, and we would end up getting in the end zone quickly, putting us up 7-0. Oregon then, on their next drive, trying anything to beat our defense over the top, but they would not be able to do it. The speed not as big of a discrepancy as it was the season before, is Beaver starting to show that he wants to be involved in a big way in this game. We would go underneath to Franklin Chun. He would make a great move and pull himself all the way down to the 5, and then we'd give Beaver the ball. Short yardage is his domain, and it would be up 14-0. On Oregon's next 3rd and 10, they would finally find a hole in the zone. We would be playing great defense. We'd send a 5-man front against them. We could not stop them, however, as they would sneak in for their first score of this championship game. 1st and 10 now. Underneath, we get the ball to Kent, and Kent would have a lot of room. A missed block on the outside could have sprung us for more, but it wouldn't matter here on 3rd and goal with 20 seconds left in the half. We would find Chun on the out route, a beautiful route, to put us up 21-7. Out of halftime now on our first big drive of the half, we would have the ball easily pushing down into their field position, and it would be a 1st and goal. On 3rd and goal, we'd give the ball to Beaver once again, unstoppable when he gets the ball inside the 5. On 4th and 1, the next time out, we would get the pass caught. We'd just end up wasting time trying to salt this game away. However, Oregon wouldn't be done just yet, as they would find a good seam beater out to midfield, and they would end up punching that drive in for a touchdown. On the onside kick, they'd get a good roll, but it'd be caught by us, and that would basically end up salting the game away for a little bit. However, they get the ball back on a 4th and 5, trying their hope at a last desperation. It'd be incomplete, and we would end up winning our first Big Ten championship. We're 1-for-1 in Big Ten title games. Our last season when we won the Natty, we didn't end up making it since we had 2 conference losses. That's no longer an issue, as we would win that. Marco Beaver would win the Sean Alexander for best freshman in the country, which would be awesome for him. 1,600 yards, a lot of touchdowns. Heath's wide receiver would win the Heisman with 34 touchdowns and almost 2,000 receiving yards. Landry Salmon, a Remington Award winner for us on the offensive line. And now you can see the bracket. We would go in as the 2 seed. Heath would go in as the 1 seed. We'd end up playing the winner of Auburn or Oklahoma in the Rose Bowl game, and we would end up playing Auburn. They would beat Oklahoma. So let's hop into that one.
No, this is the quarterfinals.
Or did we not? Oh no, we played our conference championship. This is our
So we would get the ball to start this game, and on our first drive, we'd be pushing down the field as we'd find Kent over the middle to seam beat down into the red zone on 2nd and 9 now. Get a lot of crossing routes across the field, and we would find a soft zone for Richie Sexton to open the scoring here in this Rose Bowl. We had had luck in the Rose Bowl the previous year, beating Washington to head to our national championship game. And on their first drive, Auburn would be stonewalled by our front 7. And we would go underneath to Beaver, not something he's used to doing, catching balls, but he would be able to do it there. We would stall out just outside the 10-yard line, though, for a field goal to put us up 10-0. First drive after that for Auburn, they would have a huge catch getting on the inside of the corner to put themselves into scoring position on 1st and goal here. They'd go over the middle, but it'd be intercepted by Combs, the linebacker, and we would be able to keep him out of the end zone for the moment. A big sack there right at the end of the half would allow us to get the ball back, and we would be able to put it into deep field goal range, put it up and in, make it 13-0 heading into halftime. First play out of the half, a blitz from Quan Burris, and a hero from last year showing up big in another big game. here. However, on their drive, they would be not doing too much after this fumble and recovery, and we would be punching it in to their territory. After this, a good ball across the body, but it would be dropped by Sexton, leading to another field goal. Still only a 2-score game, all things considered, and Auburn would finally find their breakthrough to punch it in for the score, and then they would have to come out and try to score the 2-point conversion to make it a 1-possession game, which they would attempt here. 5 wide, we would come out in man coverage, decent coverage, but not good enough to keep them out of the end zone. Subsequent drive here, trying to find first downs to salt this game away. We would here to Kent, and he would be able to push it all the way down to midfield. First and 10 now, a screen pass to the third-string running back, and he would have a lot of room. Obi up the sideline and all the way in to score. A huge play for the third-string running back to really put an exclamation point on a great game here. However, Auburn would be trying once again to keep themselves alive. 2nd and 3 now. Deep ball into the back of the end zone. It would be caught.
Nope, there's no mag.
They would make it 15-23, keeping themselves alive. However, Obi, with a big stiff arm there, would really salt this game out, and one more first down required here on 3rd and 3. Looking underneath, and we would get it to Popo, which would lead to us winning this game 23-15. We really controlled it most of the way. In all reality, the scoreline made it closer than it really was. We owned Auburn that game as we head to the Cotton Bowl to face Notre Dame, the winner of this punching their ticket to the national championship, which we would try to be doing for back-to-back years. Notre Dame on their first drive would try to throw it, but a great play there by 25 would force it. And however, the speed option, a money play for us all game and all season really, would allow us to get it out to midfield on our first drive. Now we would be rolling wing again, showing his athleticism and cutting out of bounds just inside the 30. Now 4th and goal, we would be stalling out here on this one. However, we'd find Kent in the end zone to open the scoring in the Cotton Bowl. Notre Dame now trying to find their way down the field, but it'd be a big sack, and we would not be able to do anything in our next drive. However, a good ball there and a big juke move would allow Notre Dame to race all the way down for a score. Burris not able to catch the tight end there. On our next drive, we'd find Chun over the middle to put us in scoring position. And on 2nd and goal, over the middle once again to Sexton, they would count it as a score, put us up 14-7. Notre Dame then running the screen pass. And 2 big moves by the running back would put them in position to get a field goal right before the half. From that difficult angle, he would not struggle like the USC kicker did. They put it 14-10 coming out of the half. 1st and 10 here over the middle. It'd be intercepted by Funchess, and he would get that ball rolling all the way back for a pick 6. Sort of his thing this year. Those corners being really aggressive on routes. Now playing from behind, Notre Dame down 21-10. Would take a long drive through this 3rd quarter and really try to punch it in. However, it's a 4th and 2 here, and they would have to take the 3 to try and make it a 1-score game.
Let me talk to you in a minute here.
And that would be up and in, making it 21-13. 8 points clear for us, and we'd need one more really good drive to try and ice this game. Beaver trying to give us that a good run up the middle. I've heard that plenty of times this year, and now we'd go over the top. Richie Sexton would burn his man on the outside to put us up 28-13. Notre Dame really trying now to see what they could do. They get it to the tight end, and he would race down to the 30-yard line. However, now 4th and goal, trying to punch it in. They have to score here if they want to keep their season alive. They'd go underneath, and it wouldn't be enough. We would get the ball back. However, on a 4th and 2 here, they'd have a chance of getting the ball back in good field position, but it would not work out for them. as
Pretty good
Allen
money
would
in the
make
bank
the
betting
play.
that.
Now we give the ball to Beaver. He would work his way forward to get another first down, use their last timeout.
Normal career mode. I'm not sure.
And then once again,
Doing
Beaver
video so you
up
can
the
take
middle,
part,
almost
bro.
breaking free for the score.
To save who?
We would get to a
Save-
4th and
oh,
4,
okay,
however,
my fault.
and have to put up a long field goal, which would be up and
Yeah,
easily
no shit.
in.
It's like a documentary.
And
all
now
game.
on their last drive on a 3rd and 20 with only 15 seconds to go, they're just out here
Notre Dame just
trying to
playing
see
for
if
pride at
anything
this
would
point.
work. They go over the middle. It would be
It's
intercepted by
intercepted.
Funches
How about
once
Funches
again.
again?
The corner having a huge game and a huge year as we would push on to make it to the national title game. 31-13 victory, really not close once again. Neither of our two playoff games really put a ton of pressure on us, especially in the second half, as we would face Washington in a rematch
No, it's telling me to do
in
an
the
action
College
adjustment
Football
because it's saying
National
it's through the table.
Championship.
I think it's through the announcer's table.
Yeah, it is, and I can't get him to like line up for it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Some of them are really annoying.
And he's reversing things.
So we would be out in our
that way.
final game of the season, regardless of result here, in a rematch of our best game of the entire season, in all reality. What a way to finish off this season. We won this first matchup 47-44 earlier in the year. However, now we would have to face them on neutral site for the biggest title in all college football. On our first drive, on Washington's first drive, they would get all the way down to the 1, but get stonewalled and forced into taking a field goal. That would be kind of the story of the game. To start, we, on our first drive, would have a big play here underneath DeChon, but he would use his speed to push inside the Washington 30-yard line. On the very next play, we would find Kent underneath, and he would be able to turn it upfield and get down inside the 5. But however, same way Washington would, we'd get stonewalled on the goal-to-go situation and be forced to take our 3. Now tied at 3-3, Washington would go underneath on a 3rd down, which we could have gotten a big stop on. But they would get the first down, but however, would have to go for another field goal. The defenses both bend don't break policies at the moment, as Beaver would start to leave his mark on this national title game just like he had in every game before, as he would get up the middle for a big gain, and then on the screen pass, the offensive linemen doing their thing and Beaver doing his thing, getting vertical up the field very quickly. We'd then go underneath to Sexton, and Sexton down inside the 5. And we would be able to force our way in here on the 2nd and goal with a good pass, and then the biggest play
just
of the
can't catch a
game.
break. No punts forced. No 3 and outs really. This game just. Oh my goodness! It's a bad throw. How about it? Who else? Deshaun Funches. 3 interceptions in 2 games. 2 for pick 6s. Rapid State all of a sudden jumps to a 17-6 lead with 20 seconds left in the half.
A huge interception and then a stop on defense the following one would lead to all of the momentum being on our side, and Beaver once again showing why he was the Sean Alexander Award winner for the best player at the freshman position in the country. And then we'd go underneath the Kent. He would make it 1st and goal, and on 2nd and goal, we would roll to the right wing, would extend the play, what he'd done all year, and walk in for a score. Now in the 3rd quarter, up 24-6, we would find once again Kent underneath, and he would be able to work his way well up the field for a big first down. And now Obi out of the backfield, up and in for the score. It's 31-6 Washington on really what would be their last big drive of the game, at least we thought, with a big sack from Listenby off the edge. However, on the 4th and 14, they would be able to actually pick up the yardage they needed and get this first down to keep the drive alive. They would then run the ball with 1:50 to go. A missed tackle there would allow them to score late, but the onside kick would be recovered, and we would be on our way to win.
It's Randa Obi up the middle. Nothing special. What everybody thought this team was going to be. Just nothing special. But when you talk bad about the champ, you better not miss. I think everybody missed. And Rapid State has gone back-to-back. Improbable run, undefeated, an absolute dominant win in the national title. Thoroughly outclassed Washington in every facet of the game. Rico Suave de la Torres, and the second one to his trophy room. The fans are going wild. Bryce Wing, again, not blowing you away with the yards, but 82% completion percentage with 2 touchdowns. That'll get the job done any day of the week.
So we would move ahead now to players leaving after winning this natty. A lot of big important players would be graduating or heading to the pro draft. Regardless, Rosales, Funchess, Sexton, a lot of those guys would be leaving. We would land a 3-star quarterback. All of these guys are transfers. We wouldn't get them until the very last week of the transfer portal. However, all of these guys would come at once for us. We've been landing some big guys. Hugh Daniels, a 4-star will linebacker, another 3-star receiver, which we would need with guys graduating. Some more offensive line. That's, I think, the biggest reason we had success all this time, especially once we got to the Big Ten, is we had been building the tight end, or the offensive line and the tight end room really strongly and letting everything else fall into place afterwards. We see a 4-star corner 2 ago, another offensive lineman, just retooling and restocking all that we could. We would lose out on 2 guys. However, you can see here us going through all the dev traits. Impact, a couple normals, another impact there. The 4-star is a star. He's really good. Peel, a star from the 3-star will linebacker there. Lots of star devs in mix with normal dev. Impact there for Noma. A star for the center. An elite dev for the tight end out of high school. A 3-star with an elite dev trait is crazy. Not the fastest guy, but still. He'll develop like crazy. Star dev for Hugh Daniels. That was expected. A 4-star will linebacker with good speed and excel.
You know that left tackle that we didn't get from there?
We keep going through a lot more impacts than normal, but the normal dev guys had abilities to start, which is huge. Star out of the 4-star corner there. Star out of our 4-star receiver, and unfortunately our 5-star was not star dev. So we look ahead now at the roster. I'll go through it kind of quickly. Wing up to an 89 overall for his final year. Crazy work there. Beaver not upgrading a ton, but he goes to go up to impact dev, so that would be fine for our final season. Sexton back for another year, and Kent as well. Just basically retooling and restocking. The offensive line is great. And Sam Hastings up to being our best overall player. Listen, be really high overall as well. Defensive tackle Burns up highly to an 88 overall. We can go through the linebackers here. Kind of going through quickly. We lose guys like Burris, which is a big loss. Peel, a 90 overall. We'd have to retool some guys. As you can see, we go through our updated depth chart. We're an 89 overall heading into our final year. 89 offense, a 91 defense, which is insane. That'll be really good, but we keep Chun and Sexton. That's huge for us. The offensive line just blowing through quickly. But yeah, Hastings, really good. Burns, really good. Vilma ended up looking pretty good. You see our corner room looking stellar as always. Safeties looking really good. And that's going to be it for this video. So a little bit more abridged, a little bit quicker, under an hour for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We'll have Season 7 coming out very soon, and then College Football 27 videos along with everything else coming out on July 2nd when the game releases. I should have one July 3rd of a review, and then this Dynasty mode working its way back going again. So yeah, if you did enjoy, like I said, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, comment what you like to see, and until next time, take it easy.